Hi, population, and welcome to Back Issues. I am Sal.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Ben.
Today, in honor of the upcoming November 20th release of the Netflix original series Jessica Jones, I thought we'd talk about Alias, a book that I've been wanting to do since we started Back Issues. I've been like, oh, we're going to do Alias one day, and then it just never got around to it, and finally we're like, yes, I'm going to do this.
First question.
Yeah.
Does this have anything to do with
The show?
television
No,
with
it does
Jennifer
not.
Garner?
That is why it's called Jessica Jones. Originally, the show was going to be called AKA Jessica Jones.
Yes.
As if to further push itself away from the 20-year-old Jennifer Garner TV series from James Cameron.
Okay.
That for some reason everyone still associates. No, it has nothing to do with that show.
Okay. That show is about a spy.
It was. This isn't a spy.
Okay.
But you can easily, confuse the two if you know nothing about this book. Once you read this book, you're like, oh, no.
I noticed that there's a parental advisory.
Oh, yes, there is! Okay, well, we gotta get into the whole thing. Alright, 2001, Marvel is finally fishing itself out of the toilet.
Yes.
And it's thanks to, and people love to give this guy a hard time, but I will be like, no, this guy friggin' helped save Marvel. But Bill Jemas, who was originally a corporate president. Marvel used to have presidents, like the president of the company, but they were comic guys. They worked within the company, and eventually everybody got to be president of Marvel Comics.
It's just a title
Which
you
is
attain
why the
as you
company
go.
went down the toilet.
Exactly! And then they were like, we need to fix this! And they called this guy who had some entertainment experience, but was mostly just a corporate president. He was like a principal that retired and then became a principal of different districts. He just got paid for days. That's what Bill Jemas was.
Well, that was get him to be our president.
Yeah, exactly! We need him to be our president and fix our company, and then we can fire him. That's Bill Jemas. And he's the guy who was like, you have some of the most recognizable characters in all creation. How are they not, making you bank?
Right.
And they're like, I don't know, fucking, the internet and video games. That was literally the comic book industry,
he's like,
specifically Marvel at the time.
No, your stories suck.
Yeah.
Change them.
Well, he's just like, you're doing it wrong. You're doing it all wrong. These characters should be out there. Comics, whatever, but, Spider-Man should be a movie.
Yeah.
Why isn't that a movie yet? It's 2000. And they're like, well, Carl Okov bought it, and James Cameron was going to make it. I don't know. Who owns it? I don't really know. And he goes, well, why don't you hire a fucking lawyer and find the fuck out? And so he did, and then fixed it, and then Sony bought it, and then you have what you have now. Back in 2001, that was awesome. Now it's Jesus.
It was what was necessary to save the company.
Yeah. Both Jemas and then editor-in-chief Joe Quesada really wanted Brian Michael Bendis to start writing for Marvel. And he had written some independent books that he had done on his own. Jinx was a cool noir. He was very into noir at that time, and so it stood to reason that he would do this book, which is very steeped in noir, but set against the Marvel Universe backdrop.
Okay.
All right, now Ethan pointed out the parental advisory explicit content, and I'm also going to point out the Max comics.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, one of the things they wanted to do was let the writers tell their story without all this garbage. And by garbage I mean what they refer to as continuity or the comics code, which was still in effect at that time.
So they wanted to do kind of an image from the 90s kind of move.
Yeah, and so Bendis pitched them a script which was originally called Jessica Drew or Alias, and it starred Jessica Drew, the Spider-Woman. Mm-hmm. And Marvel's like, no. You can't use her. I don't care if we haven't used her in decades. You can't have her.
Right.
No spider.
She's sacred.
Hyphen person is going to do this.
That's right. Yeah. They and
DC wouldn't let Alan Moore use real characters.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to create your own. So Bendis did, but still created and set into the Marvel Universe.
Right.
But the opening line of Alias, and in the pitch was the word "fuck." First word, "fuck." And immediately people were like, no! The people involved in Marvel were like, you can't... And Bill's like, why? There's no real body governing us. We can publish whatever we want.
Right.
And they're like, well, there's a panel of teachers and mothers who read every comic that we put out.
Panel of busybodies.
Yeah, and they, for no reason whatsoever, allow us to put out our books. The fact was, it was actually just self-regulation as a holdover from the 50s communist thing.
Which I really don't understand because the movie industry came up with a rating system.
Yes.
why didn't comics come up with a rating system?
They did.
There was
the comics code.
It was the comic code.
Yeah, but the comics code was
effectively you can't have anything over PG-13.
Yes,
but that's not a rating system.
Well,
like that's a censorship system.
Oh yeah. Oh no, absolutely. But
it's very different.
But it was better than what the government was going to come up with.
Well, but
they believe. I think so. Yes.
Maybe in the 50s.
Yeah, in the 50s, absolutely.
By
by the
90s,
80s, by the 80s, no. By the 70s, in fact, even in the 70s, there were 2 Spider-Man books that were published under Marvel that were not approved by the Comics Code because they had drug use in them. And Stan Lee is like, I don't fucking care.
Right.
And we don't need it. And they just didn't put it on, didn't change anything. Like, they were just like, oh, well, whatever. And that should have been the wake-up call.
Right.
That should have been the, like, well, we're just never going to do it again.
Yeah.
And just publish what we want. But they were worried about the same reason why studios are like, oh, can that be PG-13? Can we take that out? Can we cut a little thing?
Oh, we can't show the basketball diaries.
Well, no, it's because, like, we can't make as much money with an R rating as we can with a PG-13. Right. And if we rate a book and it's R-rated, people won't buy it.
But that's what I don't understand.
Well, people will buy it.
Because so many comic book readers at this point, and even before,
are
adults already.
Yes, but they still, especially in 2001, affiliate comics with children.
Maybe you'll make more money if ages
everyone
can get it. Well, but there's definitely a niche, as rated R movies have shown,
exactly.
for adult-only content.
And Jemison, Quesada, and Bendis had the same concept, and so they were like, fine. We're dropping the Comics Code, but for you people who don't want fuck in your regular comics, we'll put out Marvel Max. And Marvel Max will have a big logo on it, Goosh Max, and it will say parental advisory explicit content on it, and that way everyone will not make any mistake.
And they just made that up, right? That wasn't the Comics Code. It was like, we're going to put it parental
No, they were
explicit.
Just like, here. That way, no one will complain.
We'll invent a logo.
Yep. And we'll just put it on the damn cover. And they published a couple of Max books. This one's the best one. Maybe Punisher is also the best one, because they also made Punisher Max.
Really?
Where they called Garth Ennis, and they're like, Garth, you want to write Punisher? And he goes, yeah, but I don't... And actually, Ennis was brought into Marvel like during that time, and wrote like in-continuity Punisher stories, and after a couple of volumes, he's like, I'm fucking done with this. Daredevil's going to show up and punch him in the face, or he can't kill the Kingpin. This is bullshit. And they go, well, we actually got this imprint just for you. And so he did...
Still can't kill Kingpin.
Yes, but with Punisher Max, that was in its own universe. So he could kill that Kingpin.
But this is
in Marvel continuity. It's just not anything associated with the Marvel Universe would really be affected.
Okay.
So they were like Bendis was given the directive, like, Spider-Man can't show up in this book.
Right, you can refer to...
He can be in that universe, but he can't show up because then there's the possibility he'll show his dick or something, and then will be rendered unmarketable. So he created Jessica Jones, and finally we're getting into it. The idea here being Jessica Jones is a character who was retconned into Marvel's past. By the way, set in 616 regular Marvel continuity.
Right.
But Bendis like kind of looking at continuity as a challenge as opposed to a shackle. Later he would just eventually throw the shackles away and go, fuck it. I don't care what it is. I'll just do whatever.
Right.
Alias is written by Brian Michael Bendis and drawn by Michael Gaydos. Although the covers are all done by David Mack, who's from like indie books like Kabuki and stuff. Amazing work. His cover work is top-notch. Gaydos is much more like grounded in reality, as you can see, like realistic proportions.
Yeah.
Kind of gritty and uncomfortable. Everyone's kind of like a little too real.
Yeah.
No one's glamorous. Very inglamorous looking book.
Yeah.
And deliberately so.
Right.
And also there are flashbacks in the book done by Mark Bagley, who drew like Ultimate Spider-Man, and it's done for very specific reasons. It's because Jessica Jones was a teenager who was in a car accident, and in the car accident, one of the other cars involved was carrying canisters of a mysterious, liquid that splashed on her and blah. And
Bendis created this character.
Yeah, Bendis created her and retconned her into continuity as like a girl who went to Peter Parker's high school, who's in the same class as Peter Parker, and got these random powers. And the random powers she has are unremarkable. She can fly a little bit or glide. She has a little bit more of a healing factor. She has an increased strength, threshold. But that's kind of it. Unremarkable, especially in the spectrum of Marvel superheroes.
Right.
Like, well, what animal do you have your powers based off of? Like, well, nothing. And
right.
I think the idea was...
a car.
Exactly.
Really.
Kinda. Which car?
Is it a Volkswagen? I can lift a Volkswagen.
Yeah. A sedan? Eventually.
Someone get this dump truck off this woman!
Oh, you're gonna have to call the Avengers. She was discovering her powers, and she's like running, and she takes this huge leap, and she's flying, and she's in like the suburbs, and she lands in the city, and like lands on the Scorpion and knocks him out, and everyone's like, "Holy crap! You must be a superhero!" And she's like, "Yeah." So then she puts on a costume that looks very inspired by the 80s. If you check out the image behind me, that's drawn by Stuart Immonen. It's very... Like, it's white and purple.
Yeah.
And her superhero name was Jewel.
Jewel.
Yeah.
Like the singer.
You like the singer.
Okay.
And she had a very short career that is explained throughout the book.
Okay, so this is post her superhero.
Oh, yeah, no. After... Okay, so let's get into her origin. So Jewel was this really awesome... But no. She was a really, really mundane, run-of-the-mill, everyday superhero. And... One day, she is, like, flying around, and I think the sequence that we see is her flying past Thor, and Thor's like, hello! Like, hello, fellow super person above
hello,
everyone
fellow
else.
Flyer!
Yeah. And then...
Okay, so she can fly. She can fly.
Yeah. Yeah, but...
Legit fly.
Yeah, but not like Superman. She can fly around.
What does that mean?
Superman can fly and stop and, like, go...
she has to...
She
She's
kind of
more like
leaps.
an airplane.
She's really bad at it. And I think it's because she never put the effort in. That's the real thing, is that Jessica Jones is a Generation Xer. She's really put upon and really angry at the world, and for pretty decent reasons, but a lot of it's her own shit. She's got a lot of baggage, most of it self-inflicted. She's very self-destructive, but that comes after her career. So she's going to foil a bank robbery as Jewel, and she runs into Zebediah Kilgrave, a.k.a. the Purple Man, whom we've experienced before, who can control people's minds. Yeah. He immediately says, like, hey, why don't you have a seat? And she does. He's in a restaurant, and he's, like, making these people do whatever they want. Right. Or whatever he wants. And so he's like, take off your clothes. And so she starts to take off her clothes. He's like, you know what, wait, why don't you come back to my place, and you can do it there. And then proceeds to keep her as a slave for 8 months. In his Ritz apartment.
Jesus.
Yeah. And
it's fucked up.
And as she explains, like, he never has sex with her, but he already, like, raped her mind and took over her body and made her do things and say things and pretend to love him.
And keeps her as a prisoner for 8 months. And keeps
her as a prisoner for 8 months. And nobody did anything or looked for her because she had no family, and she's, so...
And she wasn't, like, a part of a team or anything.
No, exactly. So she was friends with Carol Danvers, who at this point was Ms. Marvel. So, but even Carol's like, just kind of like, yeah, we're friends, unless it's inconvenient.
Right.
Well,
just like very
when we meet out in the field to do the same job, like, oh, well, we both got a call.
Yeah.
But we don't hang out.
Eventually, Kilgrave has like a meltdown because he's reading a Bugle article about how Daredevil saved the day, and he just like... He's screaming and yelling, and the sequence is him like in a hotel room with like girls making out in the bed, and Jessica Jones in like a schoolgirl uniform with this vacant look on her face because she's mind controlled.
Right.
And he's just screaming and yelling about superheroes and what losers they are and how like stupid. And he just goes like, "I want you to go and find Daredevil and just shove his stupid billy club straight up his ass. Fuck Daredevil! I'm so sick of his bullshit. You super people are all like, I'm done with you." Go, the last thing I want you to do, I want you to go kill Daredevil and then kill yourself. And every super person you find, I want you to punch him in the fucking head. So she just blindly flies away from him and goes to do this. And in fact, Kilgrave's powers are proximity-based. So the further away they get, the less control he has over them. But she has this directive in her head, and he's been in her head for 8 months. And she flies past the Avengers mansion, and she sees this Quinjet, and what she thinks is Daredevil in her, like, mind-controlled, addled brain. And it's actually Scarlet Witch. And she just cold cocks right in the back of the head. Just knocks out Scarlet Witch. And the Avengers are like, oh, no, you don't. And so the Avengers fly after her. And by the way, this is during an event when the Avengers and the Defenders, so like the Hulk and Silver Surfer and Doctor Strange, are all teaming up. So it's like everyone in the Marvel Universe is chasing after this one person that they don't know who might have kind of superpowers. So, and especially Vision, who at this point was married to her, or at least sleeping with her.
Super pissed.
So he's super pissed. And the Avengers beat her into a coma.
Damn.
What? What? Do they normally beat people into a coma?
Well, Bendis' implication is is that they're like cops.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
You mess with one of them,
and they overkill.
All rules go out the window.
Yeah.
Well, and I guess she's a super. They
assumed
treated her as a supervillain.
Yeah, so she must have superpowers.
A powered person who attacked a superhero. She must be a villain.
Yep, and she must have strength.
Right.
That would withstand the blows of Thor.
She took out Scarlet Witch. Scarlet Witch is super powerful.
Exactly.
She's a tier 1 threat.
Right. Yeah, her power level is over 5. And so eventually they actually call up Jean Grey to wake her out of her coma.
Oh.
And Jean Grey's in her head, and she's like, hey, wake
talking
up.
to her in her head?
Yeah.
Yeah, she was in the coma because her brain was like, I don't want to come out of this coma. Not because her body was horribly damaged.
Well,
a little bit of color, a little bit of color.
Exactly. Eventually she starts to come out of it, but Jean's in there too, to kind of figure out also what's going on. Who is this person?
Yeah,
why'd she attack her?
Yeah.
So they eventually, Jean rouses her from it, and also figures, gets the whole story.
Right.
And recounts it to the Avengers. The Avengers are like, hey, sorry.
About the whole
and Nick Fury's there, and he's like, hey, so, you want a job?
Is that so, she won't sue him?
I guess! And he's just like, hey, you want to, work for us? You could be a S.H.I.E.L.D. liaison. You got powers. You kind of whatever. She's like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
I don't want to have anything to do with you people or your world ever again.
Yeah, or your Purple Man.
Yeah, or your Purple Men, or your Thors, or your Scarlet whatevers. And eventually she becomes Jessica Jones' private investigator.
Okay.
And she uses her powers kind of just to help further her career along a little bit. It doesn't really help her. It's just more she can take a beating really well.
Okay.
And
so this is interesting. This is what happens to someone after they stop being a superhero?
Yes.
But they have powers.
Yep, but they still have the powers. They haven't gone away. It's just that they also have...
Just choose not to use them
responsibly.
Overtly or constantly.
Right.
The change in art styles when you're swapping back in time
from
is
Bagley
really cool.
It is cool, because you're like, ooh, a comic book, wee! And then you're like, oh, shit, it's dark again.
And you're back to reality, ooh.
Yeah.
It's very interesting.
So throughout these 4 volumes, because Jessica Jones or Alias is a mini-series, it takes up 4 volumes. Mm-hmm. Throughout the series, by the way, we don't get the origin until the last story. Because we're all kind of building her character up to the point where she can admit what actually happened to her. Okay. But we know it was ugly, and we know that it was superhero-related, and we know that she's got a huge chip on her shoulder.
Right.
So she's running this investigation private detective firm. Right. And she's caught up in a number of cases that are all in some way, shape, or form related to superheroes. Okay. And it's the dark underbelly of the Marvel Universe. Real Marvel, but real problems. I mean, in one of them, she's hired to case somebody because she's always involved in one affair scandal after another. My husband's cheating on me, find out who it is.
She find out 90% of private investigator cases.
Exactly. And in fact, one of them, she finds out that the guy is cheating on her with a guy, and so she pretends to be a guy and traps him, and then agrees to meet him at some diner so they can bang. And she goes up to the bar and she's hanging out, and this guy's there, and she's talking about why do people want to be superheroes? And she gets into this really interesting conversation with this guy, who turns out to be the guy that she's supposed to be meeting.
I thought you were going to be who turns out to be Daredevil,
right? No, actually, Daredevil shows up a lot because when one of the first jobs she gets is she's okay, well...
All right, yeah, go back to the guy at the bar.
Well, she meets the guy at the bar, and it turns out that's the guy who she's trying to trap. She's trying to catfish into, hey, guess what?
Right.
You're screwed. And she just says, you know what? You're doing really shitty things to your wife. Stop lying and come out of the closet and let your wife go. And he's like, oh, and he runs away. And it's funny because it's a very, introspective conversation until she realizes it's this loser, deadbeat guy. Right. She's like... Damn it. I can't believe I listened to that and actually believed it for a few minutes. And that's kind of a theme of the story is Jessica Jones learning lessons and then rejecting them. Because I think one of the main takeaways from this book is that Jessica Jones makes bad choices. This is compounded by a PS from the Alias series that's also written by Bendis, which is a what-if book, which we'll get into at the end. But, yeah, feel free to leaf through these volumes. So, one of the jobs she's hired on, she finds out, like, you know, this dude's wife is cheating on him.
Right.
And he gets really mad at her, and he's like, well, women are the same, and he's screaming at her. And he eventually tries to, like, kick her ass, so she throws him through her, like, Alias Investigations window.
Oh.
And the cops show up, and she's like, he attacked me, and the cops are really dickish. Mm-hmm. You know, they're like, oh, superhero fucking picking on the regular people. She's like, oh my god. And it's like very frustrating, well written, a little hammy over time, because in 2001, groundbreaking, in 2015, it's like, it's all been done.
Yep.
But this kind of really, it still catches you. These are very real characters.
Okay.
So, it's from that experience with the cops that winds her in hot water when she's hired to, like, take some photos, which she thinks are going to be, like, you know, sexy photos, and it turns out, like, she gets a glimpse of somebody on the roof of this chick's apartment, and it's Captain America. Captain America's got, like, a one-night stand, and she took video of Cap, like, leaving her apartment.
Wow.
Yeah.
What? That's hilarious.
Exactly. And now...
Dude, Cap's a human being.
He's a human being! He's a regular guy, and, like, later on, you get from Captain America, like... She was this person, we worked together, I liked her, and we had a relationship. There's nothing illicit or weird about it. But also, she's sleeping with Captain America. I tried to, like, to be discreet about it.
Right.
And not discreet enough, and the Republicans are trying to, like, get their hands on the tape and, like, really, like, defame Captain America. And the companies are trying to get their hands on it. They find out that she's involved, and so, like, by the way, the girl that Cap slept with gets, like, assassinated. And there's no, like, evidence to link anyone, but Jessica Jones was associated with the case, so the cops immediately arrest her.
Oh my god.
But Matt Murdock is her defense, and you know, and Murdock, by the way, no courtroom scene. It's amazing. Murdock just shows up and he's like, so you took my client without bail, without Miranda rights, with no evidence. Get the fuck out of here. Like, let my client go before we all sue the shit out of you. Mm-hmm. And they're like, okay, bye. It's just another, like, real thing. Yeah. It's cool to show Matt Murdock, like, being a real lawyer. Mm-hmm. Like, it's not always going to be, like, a great courtroom drama. Sometimes lawyers just go like, hey, I know the law too, buddy.
And all of this is wrong.
Exactly. And they're like, okay. It's all tactics.
Yeah.
So,
we're just trying to scare her.
Yeah.
You know, the legal system... If you can afford a lawyer who knows what he's doing,
right,
you might not even go to court.
Exactly. So there's all these different story arcs. In one of them, J. Jonah Jameson hires her to find out Spider-Man's secret identity, and she's like, "No." Yeah. And then his adopted daughter, Maddie Franklin, who is one of the Spider Women.
But Jameson has an adopted daughter who's a
spider person. He doesn't know it.
Right.
And she's missing, and so Jessica's hired to find her. Okay. And it turns out that she, like, got caught up with the wrong folk. And in fact, that's when
she got caught up with the Sinister Six or something.
No, like drug dealers and, like, just really bad folk.
Oh, okay.
And no supervillains. This book.
I could have sworn it was like, you know, she started, like, investigating something, and then, like, they found her and they caught her. And
no, it's not like that where she's, like, tied up and they're like, we'll hold her for ransom. No, it's just she's hopped up on shit that they put her on, and she's not leaving, like, the den. Jessica Drew winds up teaming up with her because she calls, like, Jessica Jones calls Jessica Drew because Bendis really, really wants to use Jessica Drew in this book.
So and I'm still gonna get her in there.
So they team up and they go and they find her, and it turns out that, like, she's being held by these jackasses who are using like plasma from people with powers and synthesizing it into drugs, which they call the mutant hormone or mutant growth hormone.
Oh,
just kind of like
that came out in something,
which is actually a real, like, there's
MGH.
Yeah, it's MGH. Yeah. It's that, but instead, if you take it, you get, like, kind of powers, and you get really high.
But you gotta, like, keep taking them.
You gotta keep taking it.
Yeah.
So, and so she breaks up this whole, like, drug ring.
Okay.
With Jessica Drew, and Speedball is there. This really crappy character who winds up causing the Civil War. He is reduced to he looks like Speedball, but he's drawn by Mike Gaydos, so he looks like an asshole. And he's trying to, like, stop these drug dealers, and he's Speedball, member of the New Warriors.
Right.
He's Speedball, a code name for, like...
Yeah, for drugs! Hilarious.
Yeah.
So the whole story is basically just Jessica Jones dealing with her life, and leading down the road to a more interesting place.
Okay.
Because after she quit being a superhero, she kind of just spun her wheels and got mad at everybody. She got mad at the world and was like, fuck everything. Right. You know, I'm just going to take pictures of you when your pants are down and make you feel like an asshole. Like, that's her whole persona. And she winds up meeting different men throughout the story. Carol Danvers keeps wanting to hook her up with Ant-Man, Scott Lang.
What?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because he's a divorcee and, you know, whatever.
He's got powers, you've got powers.
That's Carol Danvers' whole approach.
No, Carol Danvers is saying, he's damaged, you're damaged.
Yeah. He's kind of fucked up, you're kind of fucked up.
I figured that would work out, which is hilarious because Carol Danvers was also, like, raped and abused by the Avengers. So it's weird that they would have that whole, you know, not raped by the Avengers, but raped and then abused by the Avengers. But, eventually she does wind up, like, hooking up with Scott Lang, Ant-Man. Oh. He kind of impresses her by being kind of quippy and fun. And, but he's also clearly, like, insecure and damaged and weird. Yeah. Like everyone in this book. She also winds up having a one-night stand with Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. Oh. She meets him in a bar, and he's just like, what up? You want to tap this? I know it.
I'm Luke Cage?
Yeah, and she's like, I kind of do. And then she has butt sex with him.
Oh.
I say that because that's kind of like the anal sex heard around the world in the comic book world.
What?
Like, everyone refers to that fact that, like, oh yeah, by the way, Jessica Jones took it up the ass by Luke Cage. And there's a whole sequence that you see where she's just like, I want to feel something. And you're just like, what? That's part of it's like the most egregious part of the Marvel Max imprint.
The explicit content.
Yeah, get it.
You don't see any nudity, though.
Nope, no nudity.
It's just referred to.
And it happens, but it's like carefully staged. Yeah.
It's kind of like, I don't know if anyone else has seen, well, no, a lot of people have seen this. High Fidelity.
Oh, yeah.
When the girl's father dies. Mm-hmm. And she's like, look, you either have to get over here and have sex with me, or I'm going to stick my hand in the fire. I just need to feel something that's not this.
That's exactly what, and I know it, Bendis loves High Fidelity. So, by the way, she winds up, like, meeting him more through Matt Murdock.
Okay.
And they have this weird relationship where Luke is very real and very direct with her. He doesn't play any games.
Right.
And he's sick of them. Like, he's just like, no. And Danvers is also like, well, I want you to be with Scott Lang. So she starts talking shit about him. Mm-hmm. And she's like, he's a cape chaser. Like, he bangs everybody. Like, he bangs every girl who was a superhero or is a superhero. Uh-huh. And, you know, Luke Cage is... She actually winds up, like, throwing that in his face. Like, she's like, well, you're a cape chaser. He's like, who told you that? You know, and he's like, you know what? Like, I don't got time for that. You want to believe that shit? Fine. Leave. And she's like, oh, well, no. So,
no, I was hoping it would get in an argument. You'd stick around and we'd argue. No?
Yeah. Nope. No time for that.
Nope.
Leave.
I'm a cape chaser. I don't got time for that.
I gotta go fuck Shield. So,
he's like, by the way, you didn't even wear a cape.
Yeah, what the hell? And it's just
I know.
Most of them don't even wear capes. But she maintains these relationships with people. She also, like, in one of her cases, there's a runaway, like a teenage girl that this small town really wants her back, and they think she's a mutant, and that's why she ran away.
Okay.
And wait, they want her back to, like, persecute her?
No. Like, it's a metaphor for, like, being gay. Like, and by the way, she's also gay. But, like, this girl ran away from home because she didn't feel like she'd fit in, and she wanted to go to the city where people are more open-minded. And
where there's a school for their kind.
Right, but she's not looking for that. She's just, you know, and people assume she was a mutant. I think that's the idea. That, like, they were like, well, maybe she's a mutant, and that's why. And then they just jump on that. And as it turns out, like, her home life just sucks. And, you know, like, her mom and dad are divorced, and, like, you know, it's just a shitty situation that gets really, really dark and really, really shitty.
Right.
But it's Jessica Jones, like, taken out of the city and put into a suburban setting, and seeing that, like, even suburbia is dark and uncomfortable.
Right.
In fact, I think that's one of the darkest portions of the book that don't include Purple Man. But, I mean, like, it's really hard to tell, though, because there's also places where, like, this Supergirl is used and abused in a drug dealer's den. Like, you know, there's all kinds of harsh, dark places. Ultimately, she winds up sleeping with Luke Cage, like, a couple times and gets pregnant.
Oh.
Yeah. And
wow.
When she finds that out, it kind of turns everything around for her. And not like her life gets better or anything, just that she decides to get her head out of her own ass.
Oh, thank God. I thought you were about to be like, and then things get really bad for her.
Oh, yeah.
It really goes down.
You'd think that, but no, thankfully.
Okay.
She's just like, you know what? I'm an idiot. and she and Scott Lang have this weird relationship where they're together, they're not together, and Scott is he is into playing games, and so it really exacerbates her personality.
Right.
I mean, obviously, we're talking about a book that's basically like a soap opera.
Right. Okay.
But something that's very cleverly written.
Very cleverly written, very dark, and
it's not like this person gets amnesia.
No,
and then this person's related to that person.
Yeah, I mean,
and this person has a secret twin.
They would laugh at all the continuity that takes place in this book. When we finally do enter the Purple Man story, Purple Man has escaped from prison, and there's this group of people who are all ravaged by Purple Man in some way or shape or form.
Oh.
And it's like a support group.
Yeah,
and
like the survivors of Purple Man.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Carol thinks that she should join them.
Okay.
And she's like, get the fuck out of here.
Carol thinks
Jessica should join up with them. And she's like, get away from me. Fuck you. Self-help.
Right.
I don't need that. I'm an idiot. So eventually she does wind up meeting up with them and kind of
and talking about it.
And offering to help, because now that Purple Man's gone, they're like, oh my god.
Right.
He could come after any one of us. Yeah. And so she's like, yeah, I'll go help you. And she winds up meeting up with Ant-Man again, and she sleeps with him, and then the next morning she wakes up and Ant-Man is dead and covered in ants, and in the chair next to them is Purple Man.
Holy fuck!
Yeah.
What?
Ant-Man is
dead.
No. She makes her think that he's dead. And you're like, because you think he's dead, and you're like, yeah, I guess I killed Ant-Man, that makes sense, whatever, fuck it.
Yeah, he's Ant-Man. Yeah. And he's eaten alive by his own ants.
And by the way, Bendis would later on kill that Ant-Man in Avengers Assembled, so very interesting. The writing's on the wall. So, Purple Man's like, yeah, hey, I'm back, and fuck you. I never forgot you. And you're like, oh, it's so dark. Why?
Yeah, Jesus.
And
question about Purple Man.
Yeah.
If you can't hear him, if you have earplugs in or you're deaf,
that's right.
You are he's powerless.
That's right.
Cool.
Okay. Yeah. Before that, by the way, they go to visit him. Quartermain thinks that Jessica needs to see him, and he's in prison, and he's in the raft actually, which is another big set piece in Disassembled, which Bendis will make a big splash with in the coming year.
Right.
And they go see him, and he is portrayed as pants crappingly insane.
Okay.
But the way in which Bendis chooses to show you that Kilgrave is crazy is by having him aware that he's in a comic book.
Ooh.
So the shot where you see him is
this is all fake.
It's all fake.
Writing all this.
I'm the villain. He's interior, the raft, panel 1, close in on Purple Man's face.
Oh, wow.
And it's that, and it,
that's weird.
And he's, you have to go through a major character change in order for you to progress, and, but don't violate the continuity or they'll eat you alive. It's very self-referential, and
that is weird.
It's really weird and fourth wall breaking, and it's kind of what the fuck are we doing now? And
what am I reading?
What am I reading? And you're at the end of Alias, so you're like,
right.
Where do we go? Are we going to end it with Bendis appearing and being like, hi everybody, which would not be outside the realm of possibility, because
well, he's Purple Man. He can make the characters do whatever he wants.
You have characters in
Bendis.
DC, 20 years earlier, in a book called Animal Man. Animal Man is in a room of white, and the writer appears, and the two of them talk about why his life sucks, and the writer's like, it's more interesting when your life is shit, and Animal Man's like, well, it's my life, and give it back, and so at the end, the writer gives it back, and you're like, what? Bizarre. So you think maybe we're going down that path, and it's just no, Purple Man's crazy, and you can't go down that rabbit hole, or you'll start agreeing with Purple Man, and he's a monster.
Right.
So,
but at the same time, does this mean that Purple Man realizes that since he's the villain, he has to lose? Is that why he showed up?
No, he wants to win, because he escapes from prison after this, and then goes and chases after her, and abandons the comic book premise.
Right.
Is Brad Pitt Scott Lang?
No, that's Quartermain.
Oh, okay.
But yes, it is clearly.
It's obviously Brad Pitt. Yeah.
Okay.
So ultimately, Purple Man's like, let's go out and have some fun. So he goes into Times Square, and he's like, hey everybody, hey, you should all start killing each other. So then thousands of people in the middle of Manhattan are sort of beating the shit out of each other.
Fuck.
Oh my god.
And then the Avengers show up and he goes, cue the crossover! Here comes all the superheroes to have a big epic fight with the bad guy. And then he goes, okay, Jess, I want you to go ahead and kill that one over there. Just go kill him.
Dark.
And you're like, what? But then we go back into her head and we see Jean Grey, who in 2000 is written by Grant Morrison. So we have like the that version of Jean Grey. And she's like, hey, Jess, looks like Purple Man's free again. You know that like when I woke you out of your coma, I knew all that Purple Man stuff, and I gave you locks in your brain so that you could protect yourself from Purple Man, because I knew that was your greatest fear. And Jessica's like, so that means that he has no effect over me? She's like, no. So then we go back to the real world, and Jessica's like, and just beats the shit out of him.
Yes.
Then at the end, we have Jessica Jones, who's pregnant and kind of like done being a private investigator. And she goes to Ant-Man first, and she's like, hey, so like, he's like, listen, I was a real asshole. I'm really sorry that I was such a jackass to you. And I'm sorry that I really like overreacted during the whole Purple Man thing. I should have known that this is a real problem for you. Right. And she's like, listen, I'm pregnant. And he's like, oh, is it mine? And she's like, no. And he's like, okay, bye. Just leaves her. Right. So then she goes to Luke Cage and she's like, listen, I'm having your baby and I'm going to keep it. And Luke's like, that's cool. And he's like, listen, you're a crazy bitch, but I kind of dig you. Like, maybe we should explore this. And she's like, okay. And that's how the book ends. And you're like, what?
That's weirdly sweet, but more weird.
Yeah, and it's interesting because, okay, so then Bendis would take this and bring out a book called The Pulse, which would last very short. But it was Alias, but with no Max imprint, so Spider-Man could be in it. Because Bendis is like, I want Spider-Man in this book. And they're like, not while it's on Mac's book. And he's like, fine. So then he turned Alias into The Pulse. Not as good. Still pretty interesting. Jessica Jones becomes, like, J. Jonah Jameson's private, like, bodyguard. Okay. So she gets, like, involved with the staff of the Daily Bugle. And
he likes her because she doesn't wear a mask.
Yes.
Even though she has powers.
Yeah, but she has a power, so he really resents her for it. It's, ugh. So,
he shouldn't have a problem with anyone who has powers as long as they are open about who they are.
I know, but
they think they're better than us.
Yeah. Depending on who's writing him...
They could kill us all.
No, he's not quite that bad. No. Like, Jameson, depending on who's writing him, is either a huge hypocrite or, like, a closet fan. Okay. So, like, for one, like, he has one appearance...
He wants to sign my fucking photograph.
Yeah, no,
it's But here's the thing. Good news doesn't sell. It's
gonna
be bad.
Oh, no. There's, like, in an old, like, 70s book, or in either the 60s or 70s, he reveals to himself, he's like, the secret is that I'm secretly jealous of Spider-Man, and that's why I hate him so much. And it's like, thanks, Stan, but let's let the character grow. And in one of them, like, he appears in, like, an X-Men book, and someone's like, these filthy muties, and he's like, hey! Like, there's a word for someone like you, and it's called a bigot. And, like, just because they're born different, the X-Men are fine. They're born with powers. It's these showboating, mask-wearing jerkwads that I've got a real problem with. Right. Like, the truth sells, and that's, blah, blah, blah. So that's J.J. Jameson. Bendis makes him an asshole, so who knows? Unless he's Ultimate Jameson. Ultimate Jameson's one of the best versions of Jameson we'll ever see. We'll get into Ultimate Spider-Man one day. We'll just do that as a back issues, and it's going to be like a 6-hour episode. So,
well, we should break it down by character then.
Exactly.
Because I'm really interested to hear about Ultimate Jameson.
Ultimate Jameson is fucking awesome. And also written by Bendis the whole time. So, at the end of this, we're kind of like segue into a new book, and we develop and grow the relationship between Jessica Jones and Luke Cage. And when Bendis took over for New Avengers, we make Luke Cage a main character, and so as such, we bring Jessica Jones into the team. Oh. She never quite puts a costume on. Okay. But...
what does she do?
She has a baby and complains. She is marginalized and wasted.
I seem to remember that baby getting stolen.
Yep, by Skrulls.
By Skrulls, yeah.
Then eventually, Luke Cage teams up with Norman Osborn and gets the baby back. And then the baby grows up a little bit.
And then nobody does anything with the characters.
No. Okay. Well, because after Bendis stops writing about Avengers, whoever takes over is like, okay, fine, I can stop writing about Bendis' favorite fucking characters.
Right.
Start writing about Vision and Wonder Man again.
Yeah.
Thank you. So there's a PS at the end of Alias. It's really like the true ending, and it makes it even darker than ever.
Oh, no.
And it's a what if book, and it's basically just what if Alias, and it takes you back to the part where Jessica Jones is in a coma and she wakes up and the Avengers are there, and they go, "Would you like to be a member of this team? Like, would you like to help us? Like, this has been an eye-opening experience for us. Like, we're too far up. Like, we're too high up. We need to
We're like level 7s.
Well, like we're in our ivory tower here, like looking at regular people, and we need a regular person to help us. Like you're the. It's like Kingdom fucking Come, where it's like you're both worlds. You can play both sides.
And she says yes.
And she says yes.
Okay.
And so she lives in the mansion, and she fucking hates it, and she's miserable and like angry. And Captain America.
Why would she say
Because
yes?
she's an
Okay.
asshole. Like because she's like because Jessica Jones makes bad choices. And in this What If book, she makes a different choice than the one that Jessica Jones makes selfish choices. That's ultimately her character, if you're looking at it from a really cynical perspective. Jessica Jones is a selfish person who makes really, really personally selfish decisions. And in this case, she's like, I'm mad at them, and to make them feel like assholes, I'll say no. Or you could justify it as like, yeah, you're not going to say, I'm going to take a job from a guy who beat the living hell out of me. Right. That's fair.
Right.
But in this What If book, she says yes. She winds up joining the team, or she joins S.H.I.E.L.D., and she's their liaison. She like works with or lives in the mansion or whatever. And she's a dick, but she's like getting used to it. And Captain America shows up and he's like, hey, listen, like, tell me more about yourself. And they wind up like striking up a rapport and then wind up falling in love with each other and then get married and live happily ever after.
Whoa.
It's
like
darker
that one
because
choice.
if she had made the not selfish decision to just join the team or enter the Marvel Universe, she would have a happy life.
Oh.
Yeah.
But she
rejected like the olive branch that was offered to her.
Yep.
So it's darker by comparison, not that the actual What If
it's
book
that it
is
never
darker.
fucking happened.
No,
Okay.
yeah. It makes the actual book darker.
Yes, because it's also
she
like
had hope. There was hope for her.
Yeah.
And she turned it away.
There was hope for her, and it was Captain America.
Yeah.
Right.
And
but because she's so self-destructive.
Exactly.
You know, like she's so close to being able to like have
fix
a happy life. And
and she doesn't even know it.
She can't get out of her way.
Yeah. So yeah, it's dark in as much as you're like, what the fuck, man? Yeah. So we just got because you got the happy ending, right?
Like,
at the end of Alias.
And she also wins the lottery.
Right.
And
no, it's
puppies
not like
everywhere.
Yeah, it's like the ending of Roseanne. So no, at the end of this, when you just read Alias, you're like, okay,
yeah, she beat Purple Man.
She beat Purple Man, and you know what? Like
she and Luke Cage are going to make something work.
Yeah, they have a future.
That could work out.
That could work out.
They're
they're real. Like it's a real relationship. And you know what? Like I'm not. Oh, I'm in love with you. It's just, you know what? Like you're actually kind of an interesting person, and I'd like to see where this goes. We obviously have sexual chemistry, so let's explore this socially. And we're gonna have a baby together, so we might as well at least like each other.
Right.
So let's see where this goes. That's like the most happy ending you could get for Jessica Jones. Like this amiable, like happy ending. And then you see like it could have been a fairy tale ending though.
Right.
This book is awesome, and it's crazy dark, and it's a brilliant character examination of a very self-destructive person in the Marvel Universe.
Yeah.
Do you expect the TV show to be retelling her story, or is it going to be like the new?
Oh no, it's
story of
this.
Jessica Jones?
It'll be like each issue will be an episode, or each story arc will be an episode.
We're going to see Purple Man.
David Tennant plays Purple Man.
Oh, sweet.
In the teaser trailer that they released, there's this awesome song playing, and there's no words or anything, but occasionally you'll hear David Tennant's Purple Man just whisper, Jessica.
Oh, wow.
So you know that her origin is tied to Purple Man. You know that like
weird.
that scenario still happened.
Wow.
So you're like, oh, fuck. This is going to be really...
Do you think Purple Man's going to show up in Daredevil at some point?
I certainly do. I mean, they got David Tennant. They're not going to waste him.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a waste in the Jessica Jones show.
Right. But they're going to use him to their full potential.
Oh, yeah.
Now,
it would be amazing is if, like, the Marvel Cinematic Universe is like, yeah, we're not going to use that character. And then at the end of it, they just have Punisher just put one through his eyes. Because Punisher's going to be the main antagonist for Daredevil Season 2.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's like they read all my news posts. Because they cast somebody cool, and, like, after that blows up, you know that they're going to be like, okay, we could either do, like, a Punisher miniseries, or a Punisher made-for-Netflix movie, or whatever, and just build it from there, and it's going to be awesome. But anyway, we'll see you guys next time in another episode of Back Issues. Thanks for indulging us on this. It's almost like we did an indie book.
Yeah.
It's like Marvel indie.
Bit, yeah.
Marvel Max.
Marvel Max. The next Max book we do, I pretty much can guarantee is going to be Punisher.
How many Max books were there?
There were several. There was there's a Wolverine Max book. Ooh. There was a War Machine Max book. Who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Nobody. And it was real bad because they used CG. What? Like they used CG models.
Oh my god.
It was like nobody gave a fuck.
Why?
So that they could have another book that has the word fuck in it.
So they did Wolverine, Punisher,
War Machine, Alias.
War Machine makes no sense.
Yep.
Alias makes sense. Are there any other characters?
Deadpool. They did a Deadpool Max book.
Makes sense.
Yep.
Okay.
Deadpool Max doesn't seem like it would make sense.
Well, you could be
He's
even more violent and even more, like...
risque.
Yeah.
It doesn't feel like the Deadpool I've gotten to know over the past, like, couple of months after reading the fun quippy books.
I mean, it's pretty much the same there.
Well, that's because he's restrained by not being a Max.
Yeah. It was a mini-series, too. It wasn't, like, a ongoing thing. They were just like, well, let's tell this one story about Deadpool and make it R-rated.
So the Max book is going to be more like the Ryan Reynolds movie coming out.
Yes.
All right, that's cool.
Yeah. Plus, it can't be tethered to, like, the mainstream Marvel universe, because, like, Spider-Man can't be in a Max book. So,
right.
You know.
Well, also, they did away with the whole Max thing because, like, they started doing more.
Well, they also started rating the books, like you said.
Right.
Now books have ratings on them.
Right. And so they don't have to have the Max in.
No.
Just give it the appropriate rating.
Yes, although
they can have, like, Deadpool, like, say...
ridiculous things, or really inappropriate
like
things.
or inappropriate things.
Yeah. That said, I missed the Max imprint, and I liked it there because it was a way of saying to the reader, like, you know what you're getting into.
Right.
But yeah, I think that the idea was with Marvel, they're like, why don't, like, people were exploring Max, like, I want to tell this really intricate, really, really fucking deep, interesting story. Mm-hmm. And it's like, why don't you just tell that story in the main book and sell it?
Right.
Like, why are we saving these great stories
why do we have to put
R
them
ratings?
in a special box? And
and say that and it's also, by virtue of doing it...
will be interested in
something interesting.
Yeah, in a way that has naughty words in it.
Yeah.
If something bad happens, people are going to associate that with the character from then on, period.
Right.
Yeah, I guess.
And the other way of... The other approach is like, well, if you say that only interesting... It's like with DC and Vertigo. Like, if you're saying that your groundbreaking work is over here...
No one's going to buy the main books.
Right.
Is this just the same shit you're reading over and over again? And some cities would say yes. Well, sometimes. I mean, no. So with Marvel, they're like, no, it's all good. It's all good, see?
Yeah.
And it's
see,
like,
now they're just ratings.
Yeah.
Crap.
Oh, no.
What do we do?
So, Anyway, look forward to checking out Jessica Jones on Netflix on November 20th. We'll be there to watch it. I can't wait. It's going to be awesome. And compared to this book, go pick it up. Links in the description box down below. You can purchase the whole damn run. We'll see you guys next time. Thanks a lot for watching. I'm Sal.
I'm Ethan.
And I'm Ben.